This is a woman named Natalie Winters, and she's on War Room on Lindell TV, right, on Bannon show. Natalie Winters, the managed decline of America at the hands of the CCP and the Biden family. This take, I find it fucking stunning, because again, if Biden's playing some sort of like 5D chess where he's managing to destroy the United States with the help of China while destroying China. All right. Fascinating. We'll look at, hold on one second. I don't know if you guys saw this before we even get started. Yeah. Yeah, this is New York Times version of the story. Hold on one second. China's population follows harrowing a demographic crisis. Deaths outnumbered births last year for the first time in 6 decades. Experts see major implications for China, its economy, and the world. I spent a lot of time there. I think they were lying about their numbers when I was there, much less now. But let's see. She's the executive editor / co-host of the War Room.
Natalie, you more than anybody have spent a time going through the receipts, digging down into the real connective tissue of emails and text messages, bank records, and Federal Register. You spend your Saturday nights. And I tell everybody, if you call Natalie, she won't say I'm washing my hair. She says I'm going to a Federal Register of grants. You've seen more than anything. I want to connect President Trump's today about the dangers of the CCP
and how he was gargling Xi Jinping's testicles during the last year of his presidency in spite of COVID.
And his point of view of how, America has to unwind this influence peddling that's going on.
Also, the CHIPS Act that happened, again, during the Biden administration, the CHIPS Act was put up, voted on, and passed. It was a Democratic idea, and Biden's been pushing it for a while. Nothing about it was time specific. It could have been done during the Trump years. It simply was not.
Versus the Biden crime family from your perspective, Natalie Winters.
Sure. Well, everything that Trump says is spot on, though I disagree with his quote of America will be owned by the Chinese Communist Party if we don't, turn around yesterday, because I think, unfortunately, the writing on the wall is that we already are.
Okay. China at the high water mark had 8% of America's debt. The vast majority of America's debt is borrowed from Social Security. We borrow it ourselves. We leverage it outside of that. 8%. They have been selling because they need the money for the last 2 years especially.
And the perfect textbook example of that is the case of the Biden family, years down the road.
Textbook example of why the Chinese own America is the Biden family. Let's hear it.
When textbooks are written about what managed decline looks like and who's...
So America's in managed decline, sort of like the managed separation between Deutsche Bank and Trump.
Sold out this country. Hunter Biden will be that example, will be the glaring example of how American elites have leveraged really every corner of America, as Trump lists, right, from the pharmaceutical companies to PPE to farmland.
Trump sent China PPE and then told Pompeo, this is a fucking new thing too. All right, hold on. This is from Pompeo. Trump lay off China, I think he told him. Hold on. Oh yeah, here it is. This is obviously this is an untrustworthy news source, but Trump will like it. This is the New York Post. By the way, a paper that was allegedly censored out of existence. They were shut down. I don't know if you know this, because of the Hunter Biden story. New York Post doesn't even exist anymore. Mike Pompeo, Trump told me to shut the hell up about China COVID secrecy. Here it is. Former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo alleges in an explosive new memoir that former President Trump told him to shut the hell up for a while about China hiding early COVID-19 pandemic information after Chinese President Xi Jinping said it was a sore topic. Pompeo writes that she was furious about the top U.S. diplomat's criticism of Beijing's non-transparency at a March 25th, 2020 State Department press conference and asked Trump during a 26 call the next day to silence him. She told Trump that Pompeo was putting at risk the Phase 1 trade deal that the two leaders had brokered that January. By the way, Phase 1 out of 3, there was supposed to be 3 ultimately, and they never, ever achieved the number of purchases that they were supposed to do in Phase 1. It was supposed to be somewhere in the order of $33.6 billion worth of American agricultural goods. They bought somewhere in the area of 10, and then that was it. And not because Trump went, no more for you. Keep that in mind. It's not because he went, fuck this, you guys can't buy anymore. As a matter of fact, he was hard selling the the agricultural stuff to them and touting it in mid-fucking July. He was patting himself on the back. China just didn't live up to the agreement. So, and they need the food, so it was even weirder. She told him he was putting, okay, there you go. According to Semaphore, which attained part of Pompei's Never Given an Inch ahead of its January 24th release, my Mike, that fucking guy hates you, Trump exclaimed after the call, according to Pompeo, who was listening in on the conversation. Days later, Trump allegedly told Pompeo that he was putting us all at risk by upsetting Xi because the U.S. needed personal protective equipment from China. That's right. Stop picking on Xi Jinping because we need masks and gowns and goggles. Stop, for God's sake, Trump allegedly said, apparently adding the shut the hell up for a while warning for emphasis. Pompeo recounts that he honored Trump's request and that we needed health equipment and were at the CCP's mercy for it and would bide my time. A Trump spokesperson did not immediately respond to the Post's request for comment. That's because Trump likes the idea that he could tell Mike Pompeo to shut the fuck up and doesn't want to deny that he said it, but also knows that saying he said it makes him look like shit. Also, let's see. April 18th, 2020. U.S. sent millions of face masks to China early this year, ignoring pandemic warning signs. April 18th, 2020. U.S. manufacturers shipped millions of dollars worth of face masks and other protective medical equipment to China in January and February with encouragement from the federal government. A Washington Post review of economic data and internal government documents found the move underscores the Trump administration's failure to recognize and prepare for the growing pandemic threat. In those 2 months, the value of protective masks and related items exported to the United States to China grew more than 1,000%. There's your art of the deal. With the same time last year, from 1.4 million to about $17.6 million, according to a post-analysis of the customs categories, which, according to research by Public Citizen, contained key personal protective equipment. Similarly, shipments of ventilators and protective garments jumped by triple digits. Instead of taking steps to prepare, they ignored the advice of one expert after another. People right now, as we speak, are dying because they have inadequate supplies of PPE. Because Trump encouraged companies to sell them to China.
To our schools, to our think tanks, all the way up to 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, really have been annexed by the Chinese Communist Party through...
Well, I mean, during the Trump years, there's an argument.
Really the tactic of infiltration as opposed to invasion, right? The White House doesn't have to fly the Chinese flag for the policies that come out of that building and the Biden regime to really be totally in line with the desires of Beijing.
Yeah, China was getting tired of having access to the world's most powerful semiconductors and the fabrication equipment that makes them. They were also really tired of Huawei and other companies being able to have access to selling phones in the American market and most of Western Europe as well. They were really just getting irritated with all the American factories and the specialists that were over there working at semiconductor factories who had to stop working at midnight on when the CHIPS Act passed and go the fuck home or lose their U.S. citizenship.
And the Hunter Biden, tale.
It is a tale. That's kudos to her for, she will eventually get her around to using the word myth, which is the right
really,
word.
I think, speaks to how the Chinese Communist Party seeks to target what I would call kind of the Achilles heel of America, right?
Oh, you mean like how they have guys who pose as dissidents or people who are like, I'm really distancing myself from the CCP, but they spread a lot of money around and find influence peddlers and they try to coax them into, playing this like hard line against the CCP while allowing the flow of money through them to influence these things. Because basically they're just chaos agents, so they don't have to be on board and they get special dispensation to do that. Like Gao, Steve Bannon's friend.
The weak people within America's ruling class who can either be bought out.
You're talking to one of them right now. He's right across from you, Natalie. You work with him every day.
By money, by business deals, by power, by greed. And in the case of the Biden family, we've just been fortunate enough, and thanks to CNN for confirming it a few years late, but still nonetheless, we can really see kind of the inner workings, the belly of the beast as to how.
Oh, you mean of their attempts? Yeah, no one is to blame if they are the subject of a con. And if they wake up in the middle of it and realize, fuck this, and get out, even more credit. But if they're willful participants in it and are chaos agents for a foreign party like Steve Bannon is, then fuck them.
How this operation, this crime, this criminal racket really works in terms of leveraging a politically powerful name like the Biden family. And I think the point here, and it dovetails perfectly with what's going on in Davos right now, it's not the Chinese Communist Party acting alone, right? It's the Chinese Communist Party acting in tandem with sort of this globalist economic model.
I see. So, Biden's not bought out by the Chinese and doing what the Chinese, the CCP in particular, wants to do. It's that anything that sniffs of the other, it's all the same thing. Oh my God. Like I was expecting stupid, but this is magic.
Being championed by not just big government, right? Remember when the old slogan used to be big government sucks, right? We were so naive then.
Yes, because big government doesn't suck. As a matter of fact, you need a government equal to the quality of experience you want as a society. Small government sucks because someone can buy off the whole fucking thing.
It's not just big government. It's a fusion of the private and public sectors, really modeled after what we see going on in China, right? Whether you're talking about social credit scores, state surveillance, these PCR tests, right? The weaponization of all these little bits, whether it's, if you got a COVID vaccine, if you tested positive for the virus, then being leveraged and really being used as a tool to prevent you from accessing other aspects of your day-to-day life.
Yeah, none of that is going on in the United States. So the end result was this shit that you're all paranoid about happened under Trump. And then when Biden came in, people got vaccinated, schools opened up, mandates were dropped because we reached a level of herd immunity and availability of vaccine. And at a certain point, they went, as long as, your kids are safe, if you want to die from this, there's not much we can do. And as long as we're not in a situation where dumbasses like the people who watch War Room, Pandemic, by the way, which is the name of it. Now they've changed the name back to War Room. If those people want to die, as long as it's not gacking up emergency rooms, that's up to them. But none of us are, none of the shit, even the PCR test stuff is falling apart in China, much less here.
So that's really the model that they seek to implement.
No. And who's they? Now it's Davos. Now, so Biden isn't bought out by the Chinese because they can't link anything that he's done policy-wise to benefit the Chinese Communist Party at all, which would be the purpose of a bribe or the purpose of compromise. Nothing. They fucking hate him. He even said we're going to defend Taiwan by force. Here's the thing, like, if it was a decision across the entire American government that we were going to defend Taiwan by force, but Biden was the only one walking it back and was oddly deferential to China about Taiwan, that would be fucking suspect. And it would certainly lend credence to the mythology that they're putting forward. However, what do we have in the face of, of the Russia investigation? Mueller. Not only the continued support of what Putin wants, Putin gets from Donald Trump, his angry outbursts about how when we expelled Russian spies and these faux diplomats they had, that we did too many. Other countries, he wanted to do the same number as other countries, and they were doing 2 or 3 because that's all they had, and he wanted 2 or 3. We had 60. He was livid. Having these quiet meetings, no, interpreters, but no note takers present, walking out of it like you just had a proctological fucking exam, defending Trump, like Putin at every possible corner, running interference for the fucking guy, while he's being investigated for these ties with the fact that there's a computer in Trump Tower pinging Alpha Bank in Russia, that there's money going through Deutsche Bank and into the Bank of Cyprus. Wilbur Ross ends up in his fucking cabinet, ran Cyprus. Like, all this sketchy shit is happening. And this would be kind of on par with what they keep saying about the Biden crime family, right? They're trying to even it out like it's the same fucking thing. The problem is, the result is that all the whispers about Deutsche Bank and Russian money and him wanting to, the PP tape and the fucking wanting to build a Trump Tower Moscow and Wilbur Ross and all these fuckers being in his cabinet and being super deferential to Russia, and at the same time him defending Putin personally. And on the other side, you have the same kind of artificial myth, $1 billion out of China, and the mayor of Moscow's wife is giving money to Hunter Biden, and they've got him by the fucking puppet strings. And Biden is like, fuck Russia, we're backing Ukraine, and fuck China, we're backing Taiwan. And as a matter of fact, if you have an American chip manufacturer, we view that like you're building stuff over there and fabricating over there. We view that as a national security threat because they steal everything. So pack your shit, you're coming home. You cannot do business with it. That is a permanent sanction. The Chips and Science Act ended that on the fucking day. If he was holding back, it would give some level of credence. The blindness of these fuckers to that imbalance is fucking weird.
And I mean, frankly, people like the Biden family, right? Someone like Hunter Biden, they're a lot easier to compromise, right? It's a lot easier to get them to sell out when they have no principles of their own. I know you infamously remarked that it was like Hunter Biden was raised by a pack of wild dogs, but really, this lack of morality.
No, he's just a fucking addict.
This just, I think, really hatred for America and not wanting to preserve this country is how the.
Again. Then what's the CHIPS Act about? Why defend Taiwan? Why the AUKUS agreement? Why give nuclear-powered sub-technology to Australia so that they can build subs and set up a port, by the way, down there for our nuclear subs to run laps around the South China Sea and specifically protect Taiwan? Why have more Marines on the beach than when you came into office? Why send congressional delegates to Taiwan? Why do that if the idea is like, we're going to give China what they want? Unless the whole thing is just you're trying to trigger China to fucking nuke us, like that extremity, which is why? So you'll get rich because you're the first target? What the fuck?
The Chinese Communist Party thrives because it's a lot easier to get elites.
It's not thriving right now. It really isn't.
All the way from the White House, all the way down to lower levels of government to sell out if they have no allegiance to this country. And for anyone who doubts the salience of Chinese Communist Party influence operations here in the United States, they have specifically curated trips to China that Chinese Communist Party influence groups subsidize, all the way down for low-level congressional staffers who work on the Hill, Republican and Democrat. So I can tell you this: if the Chinese Communist Party is going after Hill staffers, right, the people who are running the social media accounts of the Democratic and Republican congressmen, those posts that you see, the Chinese Communist Party is trying to compromise them and success.
Yes, again, yeah, they are. That doesn't mean they're successful. And as a matter of fact, the vast majority of people who go on these fucking trips, when they come back, they go like, how was the trip? Oh, it was good. I mean, you get anybody alone and they'll tell you how they ate they ordered avocado on their sandwich and it turned out to be cold margarine dyed green and pressed into the shape of an avocado slice. That's the stories you come back with. That's what these can, like, they can fucking wine and dine you and show you this. And I was doing a tourism show in China. I was seeing the whole, and I met with the propaganda ministry. They literally said, we're going to show you how we've ended poverty and stuff. And I'm being pleasant because I'm in their space. But that doesn't mean I'm buying it. Honest to God, if he'd have said it at dinner, I'd have laughed in his face. It's fucking stupid. And anybody who goes there, again, most people, if they go someplace for a fucking weekend, they might be wowed by it. But on the 5th day, unless you're a sinophiliac like me, most people are like, hey, get the fuck out of here. Like, all you have to do is go everywhere they show you. They'll take you to fucking have some duck, and they'll take you to the shopping district, and they'll take you to the fucking temples and all that kind of stuff. And all you got to do is go, hey, we're going to walk down to the market, or I'm going to grab something to eat, or I'm going to grab something to drink. I'll see you guys in a little bit. And just do a fucking lap, and you'll go, all right, this is a bullshit endeavor. And by the way, you think this is the only country that tries this level of stuff? The only time it works is if they honeypot you and you fucking fall for it. And the weird thing is that they're like, thinking that like Swalwell was sleeping with Fang Fang and all that kind of stuff, which I've yet to see any evidence of anything more than she was a fundraiser attempting to gain influence. And then when he was told by the FBI that she was a Chinese spy, they cut off all contact. His campaign cut off all contact. She went back to China, and we haven't seen her since. It's because they sent her to another country. They sent her to Italy, or they sent her to fucking Spain, or to fucking the UK to do the same shit to somebody else. Because that's the gig. But it doesn't, like, these days, it doesn't take much for you to kind of go, all right, tap the brakes, buddy. Like, I appreciate it. We're all far too ironic for our own good sometimes, but enough so that we're not like, wow, shiny. Like, I don't know what the fuck.
Successfully so. And they're going after everyone. They're going
Everyone.
after the Hill staffers, the members themselves, academia, think tanks, K through 12 classrooms, everyone.
Yeah, and then a couple of years ago, because of COVID, they stopped and decided to be the biggest dicks in the world. And now they're getting caught because it doesn't work. The bide your time and hide your strength of Jiang Zemin worked for a long time. But it was also from a position of weakness. So they didn't have any strength. He was just trying to goose his people up, make them feel a little bit better. Oh, yes, we're super strong, but don't tell them right now. Don't tell them you can punch them in the eye, because then you'll have to show them, and they won't like that very much when you know you get your ass handed to you. They thought they were past that point, and they're fucking not.
Fortunately, so many Americans, really, I think at the core, don't really care about preserving America and really just see it as a financial opportunity to sell out this country on the way down. And that is how you get the birth of managed decline.
That's the Republican Party. That's the description of the Republican Party. They treat America like renters. Whereas Democrats treat it like we have a mortgage. We're committed to the property. We want it to last. We want to repair it, make sure it's better. Add an addition if we have another kid, that kind of stuff.
You've done tremendous work where you...
No, she hasn't. That was all gibberish, by the way. That whole thing was just a series of talking points with no anchor.
Had to go down like 4 and 5 layers and pull things apart and connect dots and to see what the relationships are. And
And again, he's trying to lead this someplace functional, I guess.
Connective tissue. So,
connective tissue, tip of the spear, armor-piercing shell.
what does it tell us about our country's elites? That someone.
What does it tell us about our country's right-wing broadcasters that they need 4 pens and 3 shirts? What does he like? Put him in there like he's fucking loading a magazine?
A lot of what you do, particularly related to the Bidens and others, is it's kind of up in your grill. I mean, you have to do your digging because you always like to have the footnotes that connect all the dots. But for instance,
no, she doesn't. You're bringing her on for specifics. There have been none.
It's the CCP, what we now call the CCP Penn Biden Center, or other things related to the laptop from hell.
Which doesn't exist.
The Bidens were not shy. I mean, they were just brazen. There was a definite ask. But the Chinese didn't try to cover their tracks either. I think I don't know if it's that they think our elites are so craven, right? Or they understand what managed decline is. They see a decline of a country, and they're just going to go ahead and feed the elites as much as they can. But
again, holy fuck! I mean, this is basically like creating the myth of another, a group, an other, an evil other, and then anything they do initially is suspect. From that point on, you can kind of retroactively look back and go, I think they were grifting us. But saying that, like, now that there's more awareness, the idea is that Biden and everybody had the same awareness that everybody has now after the whole China wolf warrior, after COVID, like this motherfucker's eyes are suddenly open.
But talk about the Bidens have been, they're not, and the CNN piece talked about, there's pretty brazen there where they're talking about healthcare things or charter schools. But in regards to our greatest enemy, probably the greatest enemy this republic's ever had, a true existential threat, they're pretty brazen about how they go about it. What are your thoughts on that, ma'am?
Ma'am.
Well, I think the evidence-based answer to that question, and it's actually what
would be evidence. The evidence-based answer would entail you showing an email, a graph, a monetary number, some sort of communication.
I think I talked about the first time I ever came on War Room it all goes back to the media. In the mainstream media, these trips that I was talking about, how they pay for people to go overseas to China, really the number one target that the Chinese Communist Party goes after in the United States is the media, is the mainstream media, is these journalists, because they know if they can.
Well, and also, funny comedians that happen to also speak Chinese. Obviously, I had a big target on my back the entire time, and my front, and maybe one on my leg. Sometimes you wake up and you go, oh my God, I've been had. And then sometimes you wake up and you're like, oh God, have me. And then other times you're like, these people think I've been had. That's interesting.
Get the media to not report on certain issues, right? Whether lies of omission or purposely portray certain issues through a different light, right? It's very rare that you ever hear the mainstream media really say the words Chinese Communist Party, let alone refer to them as an existential threat or enemy. Oftentimes it's, competitor or partner.
Okay, first of all, the Republicans, the new House Republicans, started their committee on China is called the, what is it? Hold on. The competitive, hold on, House China Committee. Yeah, Politico. January 10th. House voted to establish, look at this. This is Politico's take on it. Look at this shit. Ba-bam! Members only. You can't get in here, China. It's time to understand the urgency of the threat, says Mike Gallagher. House establishes Tough on China Select Committee. What's the name of the committee itself? Is the bipartisan new committee, which they don't have the name. Oh, here we go. Well, let's go back. New how to do a committee focus on. I want you to create a select committee on China. Okay. Yeah, here's a new one. This is the name of it. The United States House Select Committee, or I call it Unselect Committee, Uncommittee, on strategic competition between the United States and the Chinese Communist Party. Strategic competition. That's the right-wing, brand new MAGA caucus name for this fucking thing. Not the committee on, strategic investigation of the Chinese Communist Party. No, it is a select committee on strategic competition. Oh, okay. We're gonna work together. And by the way, Politico calls it a tough on China committee. What was the word dipshit just used, lady?
You ever hear the mainstream media really say the words Chinese Communist Party, let alone refer to them as an existential threat or enemy? Oftentimes it's, competitor or partner. But they've really gone after the media because they know that kind of provides.
I guess that Natalie Winters is giving us evidence that, of course, the House Freedom Caucus has been taken over by the Chinese Communist Party. They've been infiltrated because they're using words like competition.
It's them insulation and insurance from having any of their nefarious doings ever be exposed. So that's why they've really, really, really charmed journalists from all outlets. I've done previous reporting on this, from the Wall Street Journal to MSNBC to NBC to CNN to Newsweek, you name it. So that's sort of the short answer as to
Fox, Newsmax.
Why it's so in your face, because they think they can get away with it, and 9 times out of 10 they can. But I think the other reason why they get
here's the thing. 9 times out of 10, it's a worm in the water. The 10th time is the hook. They're brazen about their openness to like partnerships and cooperation and all that kind of stuff, because that's the narrative they're building, and they want to come across as, while like we're competitors on an economic front, we're, it's strategic competition. We're trying to get along, and obviously there's a push and pull there, but it's kind of like a football game, not a war. And what ends up happening? The House Republicans end up starting the House Select Committee on strategic competition between the United States and the Chinese Communist Party.
Get away with it. And to go anecdotal, and speaking about the Penn Biden Center, Penn, which received obviously a lot of money from the Chinese Communist Party, and by a lot, I think I mean over $70 million in the course of just a few years, the University of Pennsylvania was really instrumental in lobbying the Biden regime to drop the Trump-era, quote, China initiative, which was a DOJ-led effort to really root out this Chinese Communist Party influence, primarily in academia, but also think tanks, really kind of the country writ large. So it's an example of what Trump was talking about in that clip. But like I said, UPenn, along with some other universities like Stanford, which is where the infamous Pamela Karlan used to teach, the person who was going after the election audits in Arizona. But these universities were instrumental in lobbying the Biden regime to drop the China initiative, which they ultimately did. So my point in all that is that the Chinese
Oh, this is the bug hunt part, the overt bug hunt at let's see, China initiative. DOJ. So the DOJ, the China initiative is through the DOJ. Information about the Department of Justice China Initiative and a compilation of China-related prosecutions since 2018. Last updated 2021. Background: 80% of all economic espionage prosecutions brought by the U.S. Department of Justice alleged conduct that would benefit the Chinese state, and there's at least some nexus to China in around 60% of all trade secret theft cases. In 2018, in addition to identifying prosecuting engagement, let's see, China Initiative Leadership Steering Committee members, components of the initiative, November 12, China-related examples, Oh, here's one from November 5th, 2021. Jury convicts Chinese intelligence officer of espionage crimes attempting to steal trade secrets. Huawei CFO Wang Zhomeng admits to misleading global financial institutions. That's September 24th, 2021. July 19th, 2021. I forget who's president during these years, but we'll see. Four Chinese nationals working for the Ministry of State Security charged with global computer intrusion campaign targeting intellectual property and confidential business information, including infectious disease research. May 14th, 2021, university researcher sentenced to prison for lying on grant applications to develop scientific expertise for China. April 28th, 2021, Chinese national pleads guilty to illegal exports to Northwest Polytechnical University. April 22nd, 2021, PhD chemist convicted of conspiracy to steal trade secrets, economic espionage, theft of trade secrets, and wire fraud. April 21st, 2021, mathematics professor and university researcher indicted for grant fraud. April 20th, 2021, hospital researcher sentenced to prison for conspiring to steal trade secrets and sell to China. April 13th, for fuck's sake. Yeah, it totally looks like the Biden administration shut it down.
Communist Party finds these Achilles heels, like I said, these institutions that,
like Steve and his buddy with the yacht,
they can compromise to sort of annex and have them run cover, just like we've learned that these social media companies and the intelligence agencies have been playing the Praetorian Guard for the American ruling class. The Chinese Communist Party is cultivating.
Again, by the way, can I remind you, this whole shit started with her saying the evidence-based answer would be
their own Praetorian Guard through, multi-million dollar donations. So they know that it's unlikely that Penn is going to come out and say, hey, actually, the Chinese Communist Party was giving us tens of millions of dollars. And
okay, so the idea is that Chinese investment in UPenn this is the Inquirer, February 2021, China's investments. Okay. Penn got, hold on. It's the, whoops. Okay. Oh, shit, I can't. Penn got $258 million in foreign money. So the organization in China gave $67.6 million in gifts and contracts to Penn between January 1st, 2013 and June 2019. Let's see. Oh, if you EU Chinese investment, okay, maybe it's in the news part of it. Give me 1 second. Congress maybe okay. Oh, I see. So yeah, this is the idea: is that $54 million in Chinese gifts were donated to the University of Pennsylvania, home of the Biden Center. So the idea is that it all went to pay off because he's from fucking Scranton, and they set the thing up through Pennsylvania, the UPenn, and they were trying to do a leadership course. Obviously, that's where all the money came from for the 1.5 houses he has. Government watchdog is demanding the U.S. Attorney probing Hunter Biden in Delaware investigate tens of millions of dollars in anonymous donations from China to the University of Pennsylvania, where an academic center is named after his father, President Biden. Ivy League College raked in a total of $54.6 million from 2014 to 2019 in donations from China, including $23.1 million in anonymous gifts starting in 2016, according to public records. Most of the anonymous donations came after the university announced in February 2017 that it would create a Penn Biden Center for Diplomacy, Global Engagement. Joe Biden, whose term as vice president just ended, was to lead the center and also named a professor at the university. The center, which is located in Washington, D.C., by the way, was he running at this point? Basically, everybody was thinking he was too old and put a fork in him. He's done. So the reasoning behind, like, if they were chasing Obama, like he might end up being America's ambassador to the UN or something, or on this fucking Supreme Court, or because he has leverage, that would make sense. But not Joe, not then. The Ivy League University received $15.8 in anonymous gifts that year, including an eye-popping $14.5 million donation in 2018. The flurry may be related to the first son, but yeah, it may be related to parking fees. The last group. The group asked Attorney David Weiss to step in and investigate the Chinese largesse to the school as part of the federal tax probe. We've asked Weiss to pursue a larger network of individuals and institutions benefited from millions doled out by foreign interests connected to Hunter Biden's work in China and Ukraine. None of this makes any sense in that regard. The Watchdog 12-page complaint. The Watchdog cited the 2017 text. that CEFC, China Energy Co., one of the firms that Hunter Biden had a financial stake in, wanted to lobby politicians in the U.S., but did not want to register under the Foreign Agent Registration Act as required for foreign lobbyists. We don't have to register for foreign agents under the FCPA, which is much more expensive than people who should know choose not to know, reads the text sent from Hunter to his foreign agents, which is much more expansive than people, Oh, that was when he was saying, yeah, we can't do that unless they can set up a business in the United States. We can do business with an American company, but we're not going to set up as agents of a fucking foreign power. We would have to register. He's saying we do have to stay within the law. That's why none of this stuff amounts to a fucking hill of beans. The Penn Biden Center has never solicited or received any gifts from any Chinese or any foreign entity. In fact, the university has never solicited any gifts for the center, Steve McCarthy said. Although the center's mission statement says it does not accept contributions, McCarthy contended that it received a combined $1,100 in 3 unsolicited gifts from two donors since 2017, but said both donors are Americans. $1,100. A combination of 3 contributions totaling $1,100. This is the idea that Biden hates America so much that he'll sell you the whole fucking country for $1,100. The Penn gets $43.5 million. Biden gets $1,100. That's enough for him.
A textbook quid pro quo, silence.
Yes, $1,100 will buy you the death to America.
Academic freedom, getting us to push out Chinese Communist Party propaganda, because all the people who are
again, by the way, the Chinese Party wanting to push out, like communism or socialism or Marxist philosophy in the schools and funding it that way is absolutely something that they were doing. That's where that money would have gone. Trying to get the school to be more friendly to those ideals, to eventually kind of plant seeds. None of it would go to the fucking UPenn Biden Center for fucking what?
Getting money from them, or just that, getting money from them. It was a Harvard Center not too long ago that was also funded by the Chinese Communist Party.
Oh, and is there a Biden Harvard Center?
They were dumb enough to actually disclose it, and they were the ones.
Yeah, dumb enough to tell the truth, or China disclosed it.
A study that said that the Chinese Communist Party had an approval rating of upwards of 90% during the peak COVID, and that the Chinese Communist Party had actually never been stronger.
That you sure that didn't come straight from the Biden Penn Center?
So that just shows you the Chinese.
It just shows you that they were trying to influence big schools. UPenn is one of them, as is Harvard, as is Yale, as is Northwestern. They were dumping money in all these places, trying to push these little centers. The Confucius Institute and all that kind of stuff. We're funding things through there. None of it tracks to Biden at all, much less as a special thing. Like they went to Penn specifically. All of the, the majority of these donations, even though there were donations before he had the Biden Penn Center, the majority of them came after. The majority of all of these donations came after 2017.
His Communist Party really has constructed an alternative reality here in the United States. And unfortunately, there are just people who are so willing to take their cash that their infiltration as opposed to invasion scheme, really it works because there are people who are eager to aid and abet them to the tunes of millions, if not billions of dollars.
No, it's $1,100. 3 combined payments of $1,100. I mean, shutters are expensive. It's no joke.
When the books are written about managed decline, you're going to have years from now, you're going to have Hunter Biden's mugshot right on the cover of it. Natalie, how do people get to you on social media?
Oh, for fuck's how? She's on your show, fucking stupid. Oh God. This is the current state of the Hunter Biden laptop mythology. This is the current state of the button pushing on their side. Think about this. Think about the stuff that I went through and showed you in terms of how much money went there, what money went to the Penn Center, the available stuff. And again, from the New York Post, which is the same paper that did the Hunter Biden story initially and that Trump loves until they did the Humpty Dumpty cover, and now he's pissed at him. It didn't take anything for me to look that shit up. Didn't take anything. And yet she actually had the nerve to say the evidence-based answer, and neither one of them shows a single graphic, a single referenced quote, even out of context. It would at least wouldn't be as embarrassing. The Confucian Institutes that the Chinese Communist Party tried to put in American universities are not a joke. They were a serious endeavor to trying to do two things: influence academia to be more pro communism, more anti-capitalism. And it worked with some people because they were already tuned that way. People like Professor Wolf and that crowd are already ready for that tuning fork to show up. They don't need to be paid to do it, but the school needs to be paid to give them a slightly bigger footing than they would have earned otherwise. But none of this, first of all, people are, eventually kind of got caught on to it. And this is the soft power that China has tried to use for years gave way post-COVID to the wolf warrior sort of, angry saber rattling about Taiwan and other things, which totally collapsed that plan. This idea that China has this like mythological 100-year gaze where they can just see where the world is going and throw a fucking Hail Mary and the future is just going to be there to catch it in the end zone has been a myth they pushed for a very long time. The 50-year plan. And I have to say, I was a believer of it. And to some degree, I didn't go, wow, this is really the future of China. It's more like, oh, yeah, they seem to really be setting up a strategy and moving towards it. And because they're a communist country, they can kind of broom anybody who's not in line. If the poor or the sick fuck with your plan, you can just get rid of them. Countries, authoritarian, communist countries like that can do whatever they want to their populace. So they tend to be able to plan that way because there's fewer moving parts they have to actually give a fuck about. It's one of the reasons why the United States can't think that far out, because we got so many moving parts. We got 340 million of them in the country, plus. So, but I was like, oh, that seems like a real thing. All right, they talk about it all the time. They make a big deal of it, and they certainly seem to make. If you look at all the building there, it's easy to get overwhelmed and see that there's a PowerPoint for them where they can actually head down a trail once they've said it. The problem is these guys, I'm here to tell you, having been there, it's bullshit. It is bullshit. There is no 50-year China plan. It doesn't exist. They're reactionary. There is no long-term strategy except dominion, domination. But there's no point where you can legitimately say yes, they have the strategy and yes, they're working towards it. They're just building because it puts other countries in awe. Once the amount of building, Wolf is interesting though, comrade. Wolf's an idiot, and he lied on his doctoral thesis. End of story. He lied. He lied to get his doctorate. Fuck him. And he's a heavily invested, highly capitalist, long-term IRA and investment schedule guy in real life, and you can tell by how he talks to Tom and how he talks on Democracy in Action, or whatever the fuck that show is. He's full of shit. He's selling one thing while clamoring out. He's selling books about, capitalism is a sickness, and he's saying there should be democracy and everything. Nobody at the fucking printing press has a say about a single word in his fucking book. It's silly. Anyways, I digress. The point is that China realized after a while that countries of the world, not necessarily the United States and Europe, because we caught on within a 10-year window, but Africa and the Middle East and like big ego countries like the Saudis and others, they look at big shiny projects that are getting built largely by slave labor or forced labor. They look at that like, oh man, you can do that? That's impressive. That's who it was for.